A raucous crowd chanting, "Send them back," after former President Donald Trump blasted migrants coming into this country, describing them as violent criminals. This comes on the day President Biden unveiled a new executive order protecting some undocumented spouses and children of U.S. citizens from deportation, paving a pathway to potential citizenship to hundreds of thousands of immigrants, so long as they have lived in this country for at least 10 years. President Biden did not miss the opportunity to blast his predecessor's policies.
When he was president, he separated families and children at the border. And now he's proposing to rip spouses and children from their families and homes and communities and place them in detention camps. I'm not interested in playing politics with the border or immigration. I'm interested in fixing it.
Republicans, including Trump, calling this move amnesty motivated by politics.
One of Crooked Joe's most destructive moves yet is the lawless executive action he is taking today.
This is illegal immigration and amnesty. It's wrong. By doing what they're doing, okay, they've tainted the entire ability to get any immigration reform done up here.
Everybody knows what the goal is here. Ultimately, it's to get the voter rolls loaded up with people who are not actual citizens.
And joining me now, Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being with us. Let's be clear, do a fact check here. None of the people affected by today's executive order will be able to vote anytime soon, but this move does come a couple of weeks after the president signed an executive order to limit asylum claims. Was this a political move to appease Democrats who were upset with that crackdown?
Jim, you are correct that the people who will benefit from the president's leadership of the executive action he has taken will not be able to vote in the November elections. Any assertion to the contrary is absolutely false. What this measure signifies is the president's leadership in the face of congressional inaction. And this president's approach from day one has been that we can both take action to secure the border and also make our immigration system, which everyone agrees is fundamentally broken, more just and more fair. And that is what today's action represents, as well as the action that the president took just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, I do want to ask you a little bit about some of that sound we heard at the beginning of this segment. Recent polling shows 62% of voters think all undocumented immigrants in the U.S. should be deported. That is up from 39% in 2016. That's a pretty sharp spike. What do you say to those Americans who think today's move is a step in the wrong direction and who are shouting things like "send them back" at Trump rallies?
Jim, let's take a look a few years back when we provided this relief for spouses of U.S. service members, men and women who have served our country in uniform and have been willing to risk their lives, and too many have indeed made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of our country. That is what we have expanded upon today. This path for status in the United States is available to the undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens now. But right now, before today, they have to have left the country and applied for that benefit with uncertainty and fear as to when they would be able to enter the United States, when their paperwork would be processed. And so they would be separated from their U.S. citizen spouse, and so very often from their children, including U.S. citizen children. Now what the president has done is enable these people to access that path without having to leave the United States, to be able to stay with their family members. It is about family unity. That is an ethic and a value of this country. And we will benefit significantly from it. We will keep families together. Families, including the undocumented spouses who have contributed so much to this country in so many different ways.
But when you hear people at a Trump rally chant "send them back," what do you think of that? What's your response?
Jim, I cannot comment on the political landscape. The law prevents me from doing so, but I will say this, as the president so poignantly and powerfully expressed today: we are and proudly so, a nation of immigrants.
And I know there was that bipartisan border deal that Republicans failed to pass. Former President Trump was urging them to kill that deal. Did the Biden administration, though, wait too long to clamp down on this migrant crisis down at the border, in effect giving political ammunition to Donald Trump and the Republicans? Did you hand them a gift for the upcoming election?
Oh, we most certainly did not. And I will say about that bipartisan Senate legislation, which was the product of months of work across the aisle and would have been the most significant transformation of what everyone agrees is a broken immigration system in more than 25 years. The president, on day one of his administration, presented Congress with a comprehensive legislative proposal to fix that broken immigration system. Congress did not act. Until May of last year, Title 42, the public health order, was in place, which essentially closed the border. In May, everyone expected, when we lifted Title 42, that pandemonium would ensue, and it did not. And shortly thereafter, the president submitted to Congress a very important supplemental funding request to ensure that we could strengthen our border security, not just in the Department of Homeland Security, but also the Department of Justice and the Department of State. Congress did not act. In October, the president submitted yet another supplemental funding request. Again, Congress did not act. We went then into the bipartisan Senate negotiations. A bill was produced, a bipartisan bill, and Congress did not act, and now the president has. And this is not the first executive action that he has taken. 2 weeks ago, it was not the first executive action that he has taken. We have taken action in the face of congressional inaction repeatedly. And that is what is called leadership, and that is what the president has exhibited from day one.
And Mr. Secretary, I do want to ask you about the recent arrest of 8 Tajik nationals with alleged ties to ISIS who crossed the southern border requesting asylum. The former CIA director, Leon Panetta, told CNN this is a, quote, 9/11 wake-up call. Do you share the assessment that ISIS could be exploiting vulnerabilities down at the border to attack at the United States? What's your sense of that?
Jim, we in the law enforcement community and the intelligence community have been speaking of a heightened threat environment, certainly exacerbated in the wake